This video is for the person who has ADHD, who's in business, wanting to start a business, and really worried about your brain being successful given the fact that your brain maybe works like a pinball machine, that you maybe forget things, that your life kind of feels like a disaster except for your one superpower area. So if any of that is you, stick with me because I'm going to share with you some of my biggest ADHD hacks, reframes, all the things that I've used for the last 15 years in how to be successful. Before we dig into the content, quick disclaimer, I am not a medical professional. I'm somebody who's talking about my own experiences and the experiences of people I know with our brains. So just don't take this as medical advice because, like, duh, I shouldn't be giving any. Also, ADHD isn't a one-size-fits-all. The way ADHD shows up varies a lot based on individuals. I'm going to talk about key traits that I experience that I notice is a big thing, but this might not be a fit for everyone exactly. The goal of this video is to give you more empathy for yourself and give you a few tools to help you figure out how to do things, or if you're an awesome ally, give you a little bit more understanding into the ADHD entrepreneurial brain. And if we're just meeting, hi, I'm Goodrich. I am a content creator here on YouTube. I've also been a commercial photographer for the last 15 years. I talk really quickly. I have a podcast here, linked below, that I would love for you to listen to. And really quickly, before we dig into the video, if you can take a second to like this video and leave a comment below, it really helps me feel good, especially in this area that's a little bit like divulging my inner world to people. Not only does it make me feel good, but it also tells the algorithm that this is a great video. It helps people find my channel, and I will appreciate you, love you forever, and like you for always. And I have a very healthy dose of ADHD. In fact, I was diagnosed in my mid-20s, and the person who is doing all the tests, this psychiatrist who was administering the test, said that he had never seen a case that was that pronounced go undiagnosed for so long. So, not trying to win any points around here, but basically, my brain is very neurodivergent. Okay, so first, laying the groundwork, what we need to understand is ADHD is about a different brain, not a worse brain. And this is a big issue for a lot of us who grew up feeling stupid, feeling like we were trying to have people fit us into this world that we weren't made for. Well, it can create a lot of feelings over time, a lot of sensitivity, a lot of just questioning your own impulses, your own intelligence, all of these things. So this is the key that my ADHD specialist told me that has fundamentally changed the course of my life. He said you can imagine it like this. There are hunters and there are farmers. And we need both in society. The farmers are the people who can methodically organize seeds, plant those seeds, nurture those plants, grow and harvest those plants on a schedule, and like make everything work in the spreadsheet sort of way. And they're great. We're not them. The other people are the hunters. And for us, what we need to be able to do is engage in short bursts of energy. We need to be sensorily attuned to our environment, so pretty reactive. We need to be able to have quick bursts of momentum and then non-bursts. And our stimuli threshold is different than somebody else who can like focus doing something that's like really boring, like laundry. Whereas we need a lot more stimuli to hit our focus zone. There's nothing wrong with either. They're both amazing. However, the world is built for farmers. And so if you are neurodivergent in some way, it means that the way the world is set up is not necessarily going to work for you. And what my ADHD specialist told me is that if you look at people like Jim Carrey, like Robin Williams, rest in peace, that have very typical ADHD traits, they've been successful because the context for their life has revolved around their superpower area. If they were asked to be an accountant, they might not be as successful. And so the key is trying to figure out how to create a life for yourself where you're really leaning into your strengths and outsourcing, delegating, figure out how to ignore the weaknesses. This is why there are a lot of us in this space, in the entrepreneurial business owning space, is because for some of us, we aren't at all good at working for other people. Like, I think I had 6 weeks totally in my life where I had like a normal traditional 9-to-5 job, and it was the most miserable, soul-sucking, horrible thing that I couldn't do things. And so I felt stupid, and I felt like I was gonna get fired at any moment, and it was just really, really horrible. So I had no choice but to work for myself. And if you're in that position too, that totally makes sense. I feel you, I love you, I see you.
Okay, really quick, chiming in from the future because I forgot a very important point. That another reason a lot of us are in the entrepreneurial space is because we have the very high risk tolerance, meaning that we can deal with the ebbs and flows and the scary moments and all of that stuff when it comes to entrepreneurship that a lot of neurotypical people can't really hang with. And I remember this when I started my first business with my then partner, who was just like, I feel like we're walking a tightrope all the time. And I was like, yeah, isn't it awesome? I mean, and that's totally not to say that I wouldn't love to have more peace and stability in my life, but it means that that kind of stimuli actually really works for my brain. It actually helps me get things done. So for people like us, we can really thrive in this kind of environment where we're paving our own way and creating things that haven't been created before, whereas a lot of other people need a little bit more stability. How's that for a superpower? Wait, what is this? I don't know. Oh, mic drop. That's what it was. Okay, anyways.
Fact one, you are going to have breakthroughs as well as breakdowns. And that just goes with the territory because emotional regulation, rejection sensitivity, all of these things typically go with ADHD, meaning that you're going to have moments where you feel super stimulated, super excited, super on track, on fire, and you're going to have other moments where you are completely unable to do anything. And that is okay. One of the core tenets of ADHD is this thing called time blindness, which means that long-term persistence toward goals is really hard to maintain and really hard to reverse engineer in that way. Whereas somebody might say, oh, this launches in 6 months, let me break it down and work consistently toward that. I have never been that person. Cannot make that work for my brain. So this means it's always going to be wavy. And that is okay. The trick is to learn to ride the waves. And when you're having those breakthroughs, those moments of clarity and stimulation and excitement, that you have things to work on that you can really emphasize. For me, for example, right now, I'm in a creation mode. And so I just started doing this video, even though it's not as scripted out and all the things as I would like it to be, but I could feel, oh, this is an energy wave, I need to ride it. So acknowledging when those are happening. Similarly, acknowledging when your dips are happening and what you can do then. The key is to not beat yourself up, not shame yourself into trying to be more productive, not to try to Hulk smash through the wall of awful, which if you don't know what that is, I recommend you check out this video by How to ADHD. It's so great in breaking that down. But you want to give yourself grace and just know that those dips are the other side of the peaks and they level out when you add them together to like a neurotypical plotting towards something experience. The key that I've found is to have a master brain dump. So when I am in neither of those states, I'm just kind of in an in-between place. Whenever an idea comes into my mind, I capture it. And you can capture it wherever works for you. As long as it exists on my phone, I am okay. So I will write something down and screenshot it so it's on my phone. I will put it in Asana and just have lists of items of all sorts of ideas that I have. When you're able to do that, you don't have to rely on working memory. Also, then you have activities that you can engage in when you're in either side of that wave. So one example of this is I knew I was in a content creation mode. I looked at previous video ideas that I came up with when I wasn't in a zone, and I saw one was ADHD in business, and that's why I'm making this video. So giving yourself a pool of activities you can engage in that align with your energy, anticipating that you're going to have breakthroughs and breakdowns, that allows you to have some momentum if you can. But then again, if you can't, that's okay too. The next big rule is rejecting the advice of strengthening your weak areas. I don't know who originally said that, but it is just 100% craptastic advice that just makes you feel like you are going to spiral into the depths of depression because you suck at activities that seem easy for other people. Great example is I can't do laundry. I've never been able to do laundry. Now, physically, can I do it? Can I fold or whatever sort? Theoretically, yes. But there's something about that quality of task, that kind of repetitive, semi-detail oriented, but not involving a lot of mental stimuli that I just cannot do. And so I have help. I have people who help me do that.
What I mean by I have people who help me with that is that my partner has always done my laundry, and then before that, my mom, because I am lucky enough to have people who love me and understand me and know that I can contribute in other ways. And if I am not helped with the laundry, it just won't get done. And yes, does it feel a little ridiculous, a little infantilizing to feel like, wow, here she is, slaying, getting done, doing all the things, but she can't actually do this thing that like pretty much everybody else in the world can do. Yeah, it totally does. But I've learned to accept that about myself and just move on.
Now, I could spend energy and attention trying to get better at that task, but I will always feel like somewhat of a failure because I'm not able to do it in the way that a neurotypical person can. Whereas focusing on your superpower areas and leaning into those, honing those as amazingly as you can, then you'll be able to create a skill set and therefore the resources and the power to be able to outsource all that other stuff. I'll give you an example. My superpower has always been people, creating connections and showing them how to look good, how to feel empowered. So as a photographer, I could connect with people and I can make them look amazing. There was a time, because I have ADHD, that I wanted to quit photography and I wanted to do other things. And thankfully I had a mentor who said, lean into this. This is a skill that you have. Use that and parlay it into whatever else you want. And because I stuck with that, I became somebody who was really good at this one thing. And when you're really good at this one thing, people will pay you more for it than all the other people that are like mediocre. Because they're good at this and this and this. Nothing wrong with them. We're just not like them. So instead of focusing on the things you're not good at, instead of trying to strengthen the areas that you're not good at, try to find partnerships, whether it's friends, whether it's an actual partner, or whether it's a colleague, somebody who can help you round things out and really fill in the gaps so you can focus on the thing that you do. Because the way I always explain it is that I have like a bullseye superpower zone. In it is like people, is it content creation, and it's in teaching and synthesizing ideas. That's it. It is surrounded by an icy tundra as far as the eye can see of everything else that I suck at. Like everything else. We're talking about spreadsheets, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about order and organization, like just all the things around it I am not good at. So before I was able to work with people, all of that area really suffered. And with that came a lot of self-esteem issues. As soon as I started asking for help, as soon as I started aligning myself with people who really, that's what they did, that's what they loved, they were good at, the more I allowed myself to really shine in my own way. So nailing down, getting super, super specific and really developing your superpower areas is going to be key. Next is minimizing back and forth and follow-up tasks because we suck at those. So a great example is anytime there's going to be back and forth with things, I have tried to streamline that. So instead of like 4 emails, it goes to 1. A great example is with scheduling. I use this app called Calendly, not sponsored, I just love them. And what I've done is I've set up different events so people can schedule and book time with me. Now, what's funny is most people just use this for business, but I also use it as an ADHD hack in real life. I have one called My Favorite Friend Catch Up, where I can just send that link to my friends, they fill it out, and next thing I know, it shows up on my calendar. And this has worked incredibly because it stopped all that back and forth. Because what used to happen is with my friends, for example, I would say, yeah, let's hang out. They'd say, yeah, let's hang out. When? And by the time everything's sorted out, we would end up not hanging out at all, forgetting about it because I would be on to the next thing. So trying to figure out creative ways that you can streamline, turn 5 actions into 1, put the ball in somebody else's court, the less chance you have of forgetting things or having them fall off of your little tiny teacup saucer of attention. Another big hack that I use all the time is this app called Loom. Again, not sponsored, I just love them. There's a link down below that you can check it out. But basically, it's just an app on my phone, it's an app on my computer that allows me to record. This is why it's amazing. Everybody has their preferred method of communication. As you can probably tell, I can talk. Talking is easy for me. Writing, not easy for me. So the emails and the responding and all of that stuff, super, super difficult and really challenging. I also don't come off very well. Like I realize when I send texts and things, like I'll read it back later and be like, I think that sounded like an asshole because I ended a period there and whatever. So instead, all I do is click it and then create a little video.
Hey, it's me. I just thought I would do a video really quick to explain.
And I do this also with text messages. I'll just do the video option and send them a quick video. One, it's more personal so people like it, but also it allows me to get my thoughts out in a way that they just naturally come out instead of censoring them and organizing them. If you have trouble with organizing your thoughts and communication, this can be a super, super powerful trick for you too. Okay, next. This is for all of you that, like myself, get lost in the shiny part of everything. How do you figure out stick-to-itiveness versus shiny object syndrome? Yes, this has been the mission of my life, because the way that our brains work means that we need a certain amount of stimulation to be engaged. What better way to have stimulation than novelty? The second part of that is we usually have enough moments in the beginning to really hyper-focus, do the thing, dig into it, and then after time, the train starts to break down, right, and fall off the rails. So we have this window of time that we can really do something amazing, and then we want to pivot quickly to the next thing. So how do you see a project through to the end? What I've found is that we need deadlines and accountability. Now I know if you are just like shuddering inside because both of those things sound horrible, I'm 100% am with you. I know exactly what you mean, but hear me out. When we try to self-impose deadlines, when we try to sit down and say, oh, I'm gonna work on this at this time and blah, 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 we know we're gonna get distracted by something shiny. We're gonna stop working on it over time. When there is an externally imposed deadline, it adds the right kind of stimulation if there's enough on the line, and this can be a tricky thing, like you need some person who's going to hold you to it, right? This can be a client has been really helpful for me, or people that I'm working with that allow me to really like focus on the thing. But having that external deadline can keep that stimulation there in order to drive it home and get the project done. The other part of that is accountability. Somebody holding you accountable to the deadline that you've set. And a great way to do this, which is really hard, is announcing it on some platform. Telling your friends, announcing it on Instagram. I just launched the Bold Bitch podcast like 6 weeks ago, and we had proclaimed it. We had gotten people ready for it. It's gonna air on this date, be ready. And that was the driving force that really made sure we gotta get it done, we gotta finish it, we gotta get it done. The other thing is I tend to condense. We do the fast track, you know, like in college where it's like you have a 6-month class, or you can do the month intensive. I have realized that what works with my brain is the intensive version. Now, some people can't hang with that. It's annoying, it's hard, it's too much for them. But for me, the intensive version is the only way I can get things done. So for example, and I'm gonna do more videos about how we launched the podcast, we launched it in a 2.5 month window and got everything from concept to interviews to website to, just all the things, finding the editor, all the things done in this super, super small period of time, because I knew that that was a short enough window, the deadline was in sight, there was external accountability that we could drive it all the way home. So looking for and finding the deadline and external accountability is key into not falling into the shiny object syndrome. The other thing is that when you have those shiny objects, it's just capturing them somewhere and coming back to them later. Because I know a lot of the pressure is like you don't want to forget, you want to do it while you're excited. But if it's a really good idea, what will happen is you can come back to it later, and which I know, like later, hello, we don't trust later, later doesn't exist for us, but I've been personally working on that myself, that if it's a good enough idea, it will withstand being in a holding tank until you finish the project that you're working on. This last tip is a little bit polarizing. It really depends on your own safety, and I really think you should trust your gut around this, okay? It is in disclosing. You really have to know yourself. Some situations, it's okay to disclose, and some it isn't. Feeling that out for yourself. But what I've found is the more I've been able to say, just so you know, I have ADHD, which means X, Y, and Z. It sets and aligns expectations so people aren't making assumptions that negatively impact me. A great example is when I'm interacting with a new person, potentially a client or somebody I might work with, I will say, hey, just so you know, I have a lot of ADHD, which means that managing email is something that's harder for me than somebody else. It's not my superpower area. So if you send me an email and I haven't responded within a day, will you ping me again? I'm always great with being reminded. I will never feel nagged. And that way I can make sure that you're staying at the top of mind for me. That way I'm putting the ball in their court, and I'm also setting up that expectation that this is why I might not respond, so that they can't get into the story mode. Well, what does she think? think. She doesn't care about us, whatever the situation is. Another one is so that I can set up tools that other people might not use that are really helpful for me. For example, in my Calendly invite, it says, I'm going to record this meeting for a personal memory aid. And people understand that that's going to be the case because I've set up that expectation. And for me, being able to record all of my meetings means that I don't have to focus on remembering everything because I can go back to it. It's like having a note taker in school. So being really clear about what your needs are, what the accommodations are, and setting those rules up in advance can really help your own navigation and interacting with other people in your business, in your venture, but also allowing people to support you in ways that they can without making up these stories about who you are and what's important to you. That's it. Go forth, rock it, and leave me a comment below because I would love to know how your ADHD manifests. See you in the next video. Bye.